to have questions at the end. Excellent question, Jack. FONA is Friends of the National Arboretum. So the Washington Youth Garden and Friends of the National Arboretum are located on the grounds of the U.S. National Arboretum. And the Friends is the primary nonprofit partner for the U.S. National Arboretum. We have a team of about 14 full-time year-round staff providing events, and about half of that, maybe a little more, is fully dedicated to our youth serving programs, the Washington Youth Garden. So what I wanted to do first is give you all a little bit of background about what the Washington Youth Garden is. First of all, Washington Youth Garden has been around for 50 years. This is the start of our 50th anniversary, which is honestly hard to believe. For those of you who've been around gardening for a long time, you know that youth and educational gardening often goes in cycles. And so Washington Youth Garden at this point has seen at least 2, maybe 3 different cycles of sort of youth education around gardening. But exciting that it's still here, still providing an opportunity for young people to learn about horticultural skills and environmental awareness. And on the grounds of the U.S. National Arboretum, thanks in no small part to the efforts of the National Capital Area Garden Clubs in the past. As Sherry Lejeune introduced to me when we first met 3.5 years ago, that National Capital Area Garden Club was a big part of the youth garden being located on the grounds of the National Arboretum. So your legacy with Washington Youth Garden runs deep. But it started as a part of the Department of Recreation, and then started as very small garden clubs reaching out to young people from area elementary schools to come out to the youth garden space on a weekly or regular basis, sort of as a community garden to take care of their own garden clubs. When the Department of Recreation's budget for this program disappeared, this program became a part of Friends of the National Arboretum, and that was 1996. So at this point, we've been a part of FONA as long as we were a part of the Department of Rec. So since we started working with Friends of the National Arboretum, the Washington Youth Garden has started to spread its scope beyond the grounds of the U.S. National Arboretum. In 2000, we started offering garden science classes to schools in the area, trying to work with them to improve STEM education at elementary schools through garden-based learning. Then we realized that we had this beautiful 1-acre garden space. More young people should see it. And so we started Sprout field trips, Sprout standing for Science Programming Reaching Out. And the intention there was to be able to offer that space to young people across the district, not just those that happen to live close to the National Arboretum. Then in 2010, as I mentioned, those sort of cycles of garden-based education, the District of Columbia started the Healthy Schools Act, and that act gave funding to schools to be able to provide more garden-based education. And through that, more schools have been installing gardens over the last 11 years than at any time in the past. There are now over 140 active school gardens across the district, and we've installed 11 of them, which is not, in the grand scheme of things, not that many. And I'll talk a little bit about some of our shifts around our school garden programs going into the future soon. Then we established our Green Ambassadors program, which is our high school youth development program focused on job readiness and employment over the summer in 2013. And just of this last year, I'll talk a little bit more about that soon. We're expanding that into a year-round program as well. And then in 2018, we thought, okay, we've been working with school gardens for a while. We want to see more of an impact around garden-based education at all of these 140 schools. How can we do that? We started working with the Office of the State Superintendent of Education, or OSSE, to begin offering teacher professional development through our Summer Institute for Garden-Based Teaching. Whew, that's a little bit of a rundown. To give you guys a little bit of a sense of things, in 2019, 2 years ago, this is sort of the overall scope of the Friends of the National Arboretum programs. So everything in purple here, the demonstration garden, garden science, Sprout, our Green Ambassadors program, that was all considered Washington Youth Garden. And then we had, you know, sort of full moon experiences that we'd considered FONA programs. And in the last 2 years, we've been trying to figure out how can we think about this a little bit more holistically so that we're working a little bit closer together as an organization. And so just to give you a sense of how we think about our programs now, now it's all FONA programs. Washington Youth Garden is the actual demonstration garden. And then we have other garden-based education that we offer through our school garden support programs and Green Ambassadors, and other ways to connect the Arboretum as well through our recreation programs. Yeah. All right, so I want to take a few minutes just to talk about our school garden support programs. I mentioned through our garden science program, Washington Youth Garden has started 11 school gardens. Now that's not even a 10th of the active school gardens that exist in the district. And one of the things that we realized was that oftentimes a school will get an investment of funds and energy to start a school garden. And then, as every single one of you know, a garden is a living thing that requires continuous maintenance and effort and energy. And so what happens over time is that sometimes perhaps the teacher that led that initiative or the principal that was trying to bring in that school garden program moves on to a different school and the garden program falls apart. And we identified that there was really this gap, this place where we had 140 schools in the district. About half of them, you know, had partners or truly really active school garden programs, but the other half were in some portion of the cycle where they were trying to figure out who was going to manage it, who was going to support it. And we decided as a team, instead of focusing all of our efforts on 4 or 5 schools that we would commit to for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, in some cases up to 10 years, that we would be better served and that the district would be better served and our students better served if we thought about this as how can we sustain and engage teachers over time in garden-based education. And so what we've shifted to doing is thinking about our school garden support a little bit more as a training tool. So it still involves a lot of the things that we would do previously, but now the purpose of it is to empower our schools to take this work on themselves, as opposed to us coming in and providing for them. So to start this, we do still offer our Summer Institute for Garden-Based Teaching. This year it had a slightly different name, the Summer Intensive for Agriculture, Food, and Environmental Education, but the purpose of it was the same. An intensive, slightly longer 2 to 5 day training that focused on school garden coordination, curriculum integration, outdoor teaching strategies, and resource development. How do you actually maintain your school gardens as a teaching tool over time? And the real approach for this is to focus on not just an individual teacher coming, but a team of teachers. I'm not sure you all are aware of this, but in the district, all of the schools have an average turnover rate of about 25 to 30% rate per year for teachers, which means that on average, 1 out of every 3 or 4 teachers is leaving a school. So you can imagine if we relied on our school garden champion model with 1 champion, every 4 years we'd be losing that champion. We needed to focus on the team. So the Summer Institute is the start of this. Give them a real solid base in how can I continue to use my school garden and to teach my students through the school garden. But we learned since 2008, every year we've run that program. I'm sure you're not surprised by this. Teachers came to us and said, how can you support us more? How can we get a little bit more support? So we started offering the educator coaching program last year as a pilot. It was a way for us to work with teams of teachers and administrators at schools to help them identify their school garden goals. What did they want to achieve with their school gardens, either through community development or through how many students were receiving education in their gardens, or how much produce was coming out of the garden, any number of different goals they might have. And we could work with them to help them achieve those targeted goals. And some of that might be through direct education, us going in and teaching and co-teaching lessons with the teachers to increase their confidence in garden-based education, but also offering more sort of one-off supplements that they could add into their own teaching, like grow at home kits, where a teacher would receive a kit of supplies that would include coconut coir and compost and seeds and an activity guide that they could then use to teach about seed starting and growing your own food and all the excellent lessons that you know come through the process of seed starting. So that's kind of an example of a teacher would start in the Summer Institute, then Title I schools, or higher needs schools would come to us and apply to be part of the educator coaching program so that we could continue to offer them the support that they need to provide garden-based education. To give you a sense of the scale for this, our Summer Institute for Garden-Based Teaching generally reaches between 30 to 60 teachers annually. Potentially that might be more in the future, but for now, that's where it is. And our goal for our educator coaching program, we went from serving 4 garden science partner schools in a year to now our goal is 10 to 12 educator coaching program schools in a year. So we're increasing the number of schools that we're working with, and we're allowing those schools to come back to us when they need us. So a school can be part of the educator coaching program and then say, you know what, I think we got this year. And then they might come back to us again 2 or 3 years later when they need a little bit more support and focus.
Brianne, there was a question that I think is appropriate now. Could you explain a Title I school?
Yes. So Title I schools, the distinction for a Title I school is a school that has more than 40% of their students that would be on free or reduced lunch. So it gets a little bit complicated because many schools in the district now use what's called community eligibility. But essentially it's an indicator that a school has more lower income students and may need a little bit additional support than they could get just from their PTAs or what's available through that capacity. I see another question here. Is the program only for DC schools or does it include Nova and Maryland as well? At the moment, we're focused almost exclusively on the district. I say that to say there are a lot of resources that we have developed that kind of we can share with anyone. And so those are of course available. So things like our Grow at Home activity guides, that's just a resource that can be available for anyone. Some of our virtual field trips, those are available for those who are beyond the district. But this sort of targeted support, the educator coaching program, that is just for district schools at this time. And a large part of that is funding related, that we do get a fair amount of our funding for this program from DC Health through their SNAP education program, and also through the OSSE, the DC Office of the State Superintendent of Education. The training itself, the Summer Institute, again, similarly because of funding, it has been more tailored for DC schools. I think we're at that moment where we're trying to think about for next year, are we offering 2 or 3 of these trainings over the course of the summer? And one of them is for the district, or 2 of them is for the district, and one of them may be more regionally focused. As we've sort of piloted and standardized a little bit of what goes into that training, it becomes more possible for us to expand and serve more in different ways. But we want to make sure that we have a really solid foundation and grounding in the work that we're doing before we try to expand it out. So this is just to give you a sense of the student reach from our school garden support programs. In general, we anticipate that we'll be serving around 6,000 students through this program. So, you know, it is sizable, and our hope is expandable as we continue to think about this program. 10 to 12 schools is what we're able to offer now. When we've really finalized this model, we might be able to expand that out more to be able to serve more. But of course, need funding for that to happen. And some of that may be able to come from some of those schools as well. The Washington Youth Garden itself is a 1-acre demonstration garden on the grounds of the National Arboretum. I can only see a couple of you. So normally this would be a time when I would say, raise your hand if you've ever been to the Washington Youth Garden, but I would only be able to see Arlene and Barb anyway. But I imagine some of you have been to the National Arboretum and have been to the Washington Youth Garden. And I surely hope that if you get the chance, you will get a chance to go out there now, because it is stunning. Our demonstration garden itself is focused on vegetable production on a relatively small scale. Where is it on the Arboretum grounds? It's next to Fern Valley and the Grove of State Trees. And I've got a map I can show. I'd have to slide through my whole slideshow to be able to show you, but I'll do that at the end. Robin, did you have a question?
I was raising my hand to say I've been there.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Yeah. So through the actual physical space of the youth garden, we have volunteers that come out there right now, Tuesday, Fridays, and Saturdays, to help us maintain and grow food in this space, because all of the food that we grow at the Washington Youth Garden is given either to our programs itself, but also to food access for our community. So let's see. Food access and improving food access has been a big push for FONA since March of 2020. As you know, the pandemic shut down things right as we were beginning to get seeds in the ground last year. And we decided as a team, we knew we weren't going to have 3,000-4,000 students come out to the Washington Youth Garden on sprout field trips. So we decided that it was time to dedicate this land to growing food to distribute to our community. Last year, at the youth garden itself, we grew 3,000 pounds of food, and at all of our school gardens, an additional 1,000 pounds of food that we distributed directly to families at our partner schools. You can see a picture of this on the top right. This is Friendship Armstrong, one of our garden science partner schools last year. Usually we give produce out in paper bags, but it was rainy and we had some extra beautiful Washington Youth Garden bags, and we decided why not share those bags. But this produce would go out to 40 to 50 families every week over the course of the growing season. And it was a great opportunity for us both to share the fruits of our labor, but also to continue to connect to young people and families that we would normally be connecting to in their schools. I also want to share that in a given year, most of the Washington Youth Garden seedlings we grow ourselves in the greenhouse at the National Arboretum. And it's an amazing benefit to be able to have that resource of that space at the youth garden. Last year, we grew an additional 1,200 seedlings that we distributed to schools, both our partner schools and beyond, for them to be able to not have to worry about where they're going to get their seedlings, how are they going to purchase their seedlings. If they wanted to grow food for their families, they could get seedlings from us. And we did the same thing this year. In fact, just last weekend, we had a school garden maintenance morning at the youth garden. We had 3 different presenters come out and talk about container gardening, bees, composting, but we also use it as a way to share resources with school gardens. So we shared kale and collard seedlings that we had grown, different seeds so that the schools could get their beets or carrots or Hakurei turnips started, and then straw and compost, things that sometimes are harder for schools to get at affordable rates in the quantities that they need them to be in. So this has been a big push for us over the last year and a half. And, we hired a new garden manager in March of 2020. And there's a benefit of having a fresh set of eyes on a space as everything changes in the world, which is that he was really able to think about our space a little bit differently. 4,000 pounds was what we grew last year. And again, 3,000 of that came from the youth garden itself. This year already, just from the youth garden, we've grown over 4,500 pounds of food. And we've been able to do that because we are working more closely with the Arboretum. If you've ever been out to the National Arboretum, you know that little white truck that's called a MITS. It is the mini truck that the Arboretum uses to move mulch and materials around. We were able to work with them to actually use that device when we need to move mulch. And the best part is it has a drop back. So if you've ever moved a lot of mulch, the ability to just be able to dump it where you need it as opposed to manually offload it makes a big difference. We've also bought a 2-wheel tractor, which definitely helps. And we've updated a lot of our planting methods. So we use a lot of companion planting, or called intercropping, where we'll plant 2 different plants together that have different resource requirements so that we can use the same space to grow multiple crops. The cool thing about this is that there's very little in the Washington Youth Garden that an intrepid gardener couldn't do in their home garden. We have some nice raised beds. We have some nice, we do have a 2-wheel tractor for some of our, for like mowing the big spaces that we have and doing some of the bigger work. But most of the stuff is done in ways that families, schools can do in their own spaces. It is meant to be a true demonstration garden. And I want to share that after a year and a quarter of not being able to have volunteers on site during the pandemic, we are finally happy to welcome volunteers back to the youth garden. And that has, of course, made a difference in the amount that we're able to get done. As I mentioned, it's the 50th anniversary of the Washington Youth Garden, and we are in the process of working on a redesign. So you can see 2 examples of different layouts that our landscape architects, Groundsmith Collective, are working on to help us think about how can we create an inviting garden space that presents plenty of opportunities for self-guided exploration, increased crop production, reflect the areas of our garden that really have had 50 years of feet trampling them. It's hard to grow food in space like that, but still maintain that demonstration of infrastructure and growing techniques that schools and home gardens can do in their own space. So we have a focus area. We're going to be focusing on putting in a new fence. If you've ever been out there, we just have a big metal fence out there. We want something a little bit more welcoming. We're going to be improving signage, some more self-guided activities, and then of course always space for nature play and different techniques around raised beds that people could use. You could see the picture on the left here is a U-shaped raised bed where a teacher or an educator could stand in the middle of that raised bed and have a whole class lined up around those raised beds so that they could really all focus on one thing. So thinking about how can we design our space so that it can be best be used. I also just want to touch briefly on our Green Ambassadors program. As I mentioned, this is a youth development program for high school students in the district, primarily for those who live in wards 5, 7, and 8, although we do have some students that come from a little bit further afield. And here, this program over the last year has really turned into a year-long program. So it starts with the farm crew, which is a 6-week paid summer internship. We work with the Mayor's Summer Youth Employment Program. It tends to have, this year it had 8 participants, again, because we're still working under COVID-19 protocols, but it tends to have between 8 and 12 and 15 participants. They come out to the Arboretum every day. They learn gardening, cooking, and carpentry skills. Then from there, they can participate in the school year program, the Guild. And through that program, they use the skills that they picked up in the farm crew to design and create community action projects. Last year, they built the DC Fridge Collection. Blah, blah, blah. The DC Fridge Collective is a food access organization that installs fridges in different areas where food access is a real problem. There might not be grocery stores nearby. People might have a hard time accessing fresh and local produce. And so they install these fridges. But what they discovered was that they needed some more they needed pantry space and ways to keep their fridges from overheating in the summer. And so the Guild took the carpentry skills that they had learned over their time in the farm crew and actually built pantries to go around the fridges so that they could store dry goods as well as the fresh produce that was going into the fridges themselves. And the Guild is exclusively for alumni of the farm crew. Doesn't have to be from the most recent summer. Could be, we had Guild members that came back from 2016 this past year. They came back and participated in the Guild. So it's an opportunity for us to continue to build connections for our farm crew members as they continue their own development. And then additionally to that, we have crew leader spaces for those who've been in the farm crew, for those who've been in the Guild, to act as a peer mentor to new farm crew participants. And we give them opportunities to deepen their knowledge through longer internships. So this year, 3 of our Green Ambassador alum, including in the bottom right picture, Aaliyah on the left. She has been a part of the Green Ambassadors since 2017. This year, she became one of our garden staff members, and she's been working with us in the garden about 8 hours a week for the whole growing season. And it's her and 2 other former Green Ambassador alum as well that are working as part of our garden staff this year. So trying to build the bridge between farm crew participants and hopefully eventually full-time FONA, Washington Youth Garden, U.S. National Arboretum, other types of garden-based jobs. You can see, I love this picture on the top right. And I think it's appropriate for you all to see this because one of the things that has happened over the past few years is that our picnic tables at the Washington Youth Garden have, just slowly degraded over time. And our Green Ambassadors this summer, every summer they have a building project that they work on, something that allows them to learn basic carpentry skills, but hopefully fills a need we have at our school gardens or at the youth garden itself. So this year, the project was building picnic tables from scratch, and some of the funding from that for that project came from the National Capital Area Gardening Club. So thank you for helping us install new, desperately needed picnic tables. This is just to give you a sense of scale of the Washington Youth Garden program overall and where we serve. As you can see, we are all over the district, but our impact And our focus is the most in wards 5, 7, and 8, where that are the more under-resourced schools. And some of these schools, it's worth noting on here on this map, any school that is a bigger dot, that again means that we're focusing more of our efforts on those schools. So they might be receiving garden science lessons, but also teachers came to the summer institutes. Also, they received grow at home kits, or we might have also distributed food to that location as well. I'm not going to spend a long time talking about this, but I did just want to highlight as FONA and our programs continue to evolve, our recreation programs are now in the same team, the program team, as the rest of the Washington Youth Garden offerings. So that includes forest bathing, full moon hikes, but as we continue to think about family programs that serve the broader landscape of the other 451 acres of the Arboretum, how can we provide additional programming for our community across the Arboretum? Goals here: connecting with the general public, creating nature connections and mindfulness experiences, connecting people with the mission and history of the U.S. National Arboretum. It is, sort of the only USDA facility that also operates sort of as a recreation space in an urban center. So it is quite unique in that capacity, but then also connecting youth and their families to the Arboretum and continuing to provide opportunities for outside partners. So not just Friends of the National Arboretum, but other organizations to be able to access and use this space to connect others to nature and the Arboretum. As I said, this is the 50th anniversary of the Youth Garden. So I just want to give you all a minute to read some of these quotes that show the impact of the Youth Garden over the years. I just think it's worth noting we have a magnet on our truck that says Washington Youth Garden on it. And whenever we drive it to Home Depot or the Lowe's over near the Arboretum, inevitably someone will come up and say, that program still exists. I was a part of that when I was a kid. And we might not always feel the impact of the legacy of 50 years every day, but it is true. The ripples of this work continues across the district in many different ways. Now, Arlene did ask me to share how can you all support us in what we do, and I just wanted to highlight a couple of different ways. First, as I said, we are finally able to welcome back volunteers. Yay, volunteers. So please, I'm going to put in just a minute, I'll put the FONA website into the chat, and you're welcome to sign up to find out more information about volunteering there. But I also would say we often highlight volunteer opportunities in our FONA field notes, which is our weekly newsletter. So that can be a great way to find out what's happening every week. There's a story about things happening in the Washington Youth Garden, and oftentimes there's a way to connect or support. What goes into the Grow at Home kits? You can see this picture up here on the top left. That's 3 of our team members, including me, putting together Grow at Home kits. It really is kind of just an assembly line: activity guide, baggie of compost, a coconut coir, seed packets, a little seed greenhouse that's like a plastic bag and a paper towel in it, and it's pretty simple. It's not a lot of effort, but when we're trying to make 4,000 of them, which is what we distributed last year, it is very helpful to have a lot of man hours. Some of our clubs could do this activity at their October meetings before they start their own program. Where would they pick them up? Get in touch with me and we can figure out how to get you guys the supplies that you need. So I'm going to put 2 things in the chat right now. One is my email. And then one is the FONA website. So the FONA website, you can find information on signing up to volunteer like in the garden, but also how to sign up for FONA field notes. And then email me and I can get you, Aaron, our youth programs coordinator. Actually, we just met yesterday and he's been working on a little 1-pager that includes the information on all of the supplies that go in there, where to get them, where we get them to get the sort of best, most affordable rates for things. So hopefully, I think it'll be ready later this week. So if you send me an email, I can send it out to you. Or Arlene, if you'd prefer, I can send you a blurb with some action items from everything that's here on this list, and you can send it out to the group.
Yes, I think that would be great if you want to send it to me, and then I'll distribute it to everyone.
Would be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know that was a lot, and I'm at my time, but if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
I think there were a few more questions in the chat that maybe at the beginning. I know there was one. There was one in reference to 4-H.
Yeah, so the Arboretum is connected to the USDA, and USDA includes 4-H. The DC 4-H, ironically, is not as active as some other states. So we haven't done a ton with 4-H, but Craven Rand, I don't think he's on right now because bulb sale this weekend, but he actually previously worked at 4-H. So we're trying to figure out what sort of connections we can make there. Certainly those programs are aligned.
Well, I know I went out and signed up to go to the what did I sign up for? The Grow at Home Kit on October 16th. So if anyone would like to join me, I plan to be there. But we will also find out information on having this available for clubs to do themselves. And I know I saw this somewhere, and I think anyway, there was something about garlic planting.
Oh, yes. Yeah, so if you don't already have your garlic planting plan in place, garlic is an excellent crop to grow because you plant it in the ground in late October, early November around here, and then you get scapes from it in the springtime, and then garlic itself later, or into the summer. It's a fun project to do with kids because the bulbs are big, so they're easier to put in the ground. In the past, we've done a big garlic planting party, invited a bunch of families. This year, we're going to be focusing on it being a celebration for our volunteers and our teachers who've been involved, trying to increase camaraderie in this time where it's sometimes can be hard to get together. But certainly would welcome anyone who wants to come. We're going to be doing it October 30th from 9 to 12, and people will be able to take some garlic home to plant in their own gardens as well. So you'd be welcome to come if you'd like.
Brianna, this is Joe Sellers. I need to meet with you. I have a history of working with the youth garden, and you have no idea how much National Capital Area has contributed. There's a really, really lot, and I have tons of pictures. So I'll get with you later. I want to come in there and show you. You go back 20 years and I was in charge of funneling the money in there too. So I do want to meet with you because I don't think you have a clue how much we really, really have supported you in the past. So
I would love it. Yeah.
And we need to get credit for that. So anyway, I'll be in touch. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jean, we're not connected with Faith Presbyterian Church. But that's great that they're starting an elementary school garden. Again, this is one of those things. There are oftentimes individual partnerships that pop up to support a school with starting a school garden. And what we want to do is be able to supplement those partnerships with what we now know after 20 years of starting school gardens to say, here's how you sustain this over time. Here's how you really utilize this as a teaching tool.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today with this presentation. It's just such a wonderful program, and I love to see how involved you are with the schools and with the youth. I think like we also have a scholarship program that is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year, and I can see where we might be able to get some of your green ambassadors to apply for some of our scholarships if they are going to continue their education, you know, at a college, certification program, university, whatever they decide to do. So I think that's going to be a great little connection there. And
that would be great.
Yeah. So I guess, are there any other questions from anyone? Do you want to take a few minutes and show the video, do you think, or should we just direct them to it on the website?
Why don't I just include that? I don't want to take up more of your meeting time. I know you guys have business that you need to get through. So I will share out an email with you, Arlene, that has more information about the Grow at Home kit, Maggie, as well as a link to the virtual field trip video, so you can see a tour. But that I will say that tour was filmed in April of 2020. You should definitely come out and see it now. It is a beautiful space right now.
Great, wonderful. Well, thank you. And I guess if there are no other questions, I see there's a lot of, you know, questions about follow-on information. So we'll make sure that we get that, I get that out to all of the clubs and presidents. And we do have a connection with the Grow at Home kit. It's Bentley Andrews. And so she's also kind of my contact with the Grow at Home kit. So I think we have some inside information on that too. So we'll be sure to get that out.
Bentley and the Acorn Garden Club, they have decided that they are going to build out a bunch of kits in next March for us to distribute for the springtime. So we can definitely, when I share out what in general, what we're doing for the Grow at Home kits, can share out a little bit of information about what they're doing. It's so great to have their partnership on it.
Wonderful. Yeah. So if we can find other clubs that might be able to partner with you too, that would be wonderful. So, I mean, I guess the reason that one of the main reasons that I wanted to invite Brianne today was that as the president of the National Capital Area Garden Clubs, I get to choose a president's project. And so I've chosen the Washington Youth Garden as my president's project. So I'm hoping to be able to, you know, learn more about them and also to find ways to help them and what we can do as an organization to continue to support them. So thank you. And I think we have completed our program, our presentation. Thank you, Brianne. And
thank you.